Hi students, this presentation is about the importance of planning your data collection strategies according to the evaluation questions you intend to answer. And one way to do this is with a data collection matrix. The data collection matrix is a way to organize your thinking toward how you'll answer each of the evaluation questions and the various sub-questions that are associated with them. The key components of a data collection matrix are the research or evaluation questions, the instruments that you'll use to collect the data or existing sources of data, and the participants. The timing or even the resources are also common things that you might include for planning and management purposes. While the focus here is only on data collection, you can certainly imagine how other aspects of the research project could be added. For example, the particular analysis strategy to answer each question. In this case, the matrix would become a data collection and analysis matrix, and this can be especially helpful when you're planning a mixed method study, which we'll be discussing later in the semester. So here's an example of a data collection matrix. The first three columns are essential. The last column is very useful, however, for thinking about a timeline. The point of the matrix is to organize your thoughts around the particular evaluation questions that you want to answer through the study. What data are you going to use to answer each research question? Sometimes there's only a single data source to answer a question, but many times you'll find that there are several data sources that are used to answer the question from different perspectives. But a single source might be the primary source of data, while the others are used to support the findings or contextualize them, or even to triangulate. So in this example, I've listed two general research questions, and they're not complete, but it'll give you an idea of the question. I'm interested in determining activities associated with increased achievement, which I ultimately will have both quantitative and qualitative data to help me identify the activities and factors. I'm also interested in the student behaviors to maximize their achievement, which will be primarily based on qualitative data. Now, one can imagine the broader context of underperforming students and think of ways to maximize outcomes by first identifying factors associated with better outcomes and then determining whether the students are taking steps to engage in these factors. The data that I'll use is from multiple sources, including students and parents. Since I'm interested in student achievement as an outcome, I'll need data that include this, and I might get that from someplace like an SLDS or Student Longitudinal Data System, for example, CRCT scores. The activities that I'll consider as factors that could be associated with increased achievement will come from a survey and follow-up interviews. Since I'm focused on a single school with about 200 students, I'll survey these students. It's important to note that the survey questions I choose must be motivated by existing literature, by my own thoughts and feelings about the topic, and from other people at the school. So the survey questions aren't just random. While I'll have one student survey, only some of the questions are relevant to the first question about identifying activities, and these are listed. The second question is about determining whether students are engaged in behaviors associated with increasing their achievement. And for this question, the student surveys, interviews, and observations will be used to assess whether students say and do engage in these activities. A parent survey will also provide insight into whether students are engaging in these activities, especially if we can't directly observe them. The use of multiple sources will improve the validity of the findings through triangulation. The last column is a rough timeline of when I expect to implement the pieces of the study, which is elaborated on more in the next slide. Sometimes it's helpful to organize the data collection and analysis process into a timeline, and one effective way to communicate this is through a Gantt chart, which is a bar chart that shows the time that specific activities are supposed to take place. You organize each task along the left, one for each row, and then use a consistent metric of months, days, or whatever as the timeline. You shade the time that it'll take to accomplish the task according to the timeline, or corresponding to the timeline. It's helpful to organize the tasks in chronological order along the left, often beginning or ending the time frame will be encompassing, that the study will be encompassing if it's unnecessary to break down the steps. Notice the data collection matrix included the different data elements, but the Gantt chart includes more information associated with the process, including instrument development, analysis, etc. The Gantt chart can be as detailed as you want it to be. Sometimes requests for evaluation proposals will specify things to be included in a timeline. For example, with IRB approval, you might need to do that. And to wrap up, I'll note that a data collection matrix is just a piece of the overall process of organizing and managing an evaluation. As I noted earlier, the data collection matrix can be expanded in a variety of ways to help promote transparency of the process. Many people like to include this type of information on a program logic model that's used for evaluation. It's my preference to keep these separate. The logic model shows the program's functioning, but it doesn't have evaluative information on it. As the evaluation efforts focused to identify evaluation questions, the data collection and analysis and even standards matrix is created. This matrix can include as much detail as necessary as to what data will be used to answer the evaluation questions, or and how or even when it will happen.